In this video, we're going to take a look at the WNBA 2025 draft and who will be the #1 draft pick. It was interesting after my last video where I speculated Paige Bueckers might not want to go to Dallas. A few comments saying who says Paige is going to be the #1 draft pick, and that seems to be a hot topic right now. So we are going to dive into it and take a look. Before we start, if you enjoy the content, then please consider subscribing to the channel and giving the video a like. All right, let's get into this. Now, I note that Hunter Cruz and Quita have done videos on this, sort of building up Miles as a potential challenger for Paige Bueckers to be the #1 pick. But if you watch their videos, they cut just short of saying, yes, that Miles will be the #1 pick in the WNBA draft, as they both come away saying, we would still choose Paige #1. And they are correct. Because if healthy, Paige Bueckers will be the #1 pick in the 2025 draft if she chooses to come out, and if the Dallas Wings feel like they will be able to sign her to a contract. And the reason that this is, it comes down to three things. First of all, position, best player at her position, and the face of the franchise. And we'll just break these down individually. In terms of position, the two most important positions I believe in the WNBA are the stretch 4 or 5, having one of those, and the other one is to have a good point guard. In terms of the stretch 5, the New York Liberty have Stewie and Jonquel Jones. The Aces have Asia Wilson. The Lynx have Alana Smith and Nafisa Collier. Hence why, if you want to challenge for a championship in the WNBA, you need a stretch 4 or 5. And hence why I killed the Sky for choosing Cardoso and Angel Reese. But this video isn't about that debate. But that is what I think the Sky have done. They've taken a gamble that Angel Reese can find an outside shot. Good luck to her. But the other position you need to have sorted if you are going to contend for a championship in the WNBA is point guard. Case in point, the Dallas Wings. Greg Bibb tried to skimp that position, going with Uzon from overseas and J.C. Sheldon from Ohio State, who was a rookie, and they paid the ultimate price. Or should I say Greg Bibb paid the price, and he is no longer the GM of the Wings. Celebrate, Wings fans. But if you look around the W, you see how valuable the point guard position is. For example, the Atlanta Dream were hot and heavy to bring in Jordan Canada. They signed her to a $185K 2-year contract. Based on one good year with the Sparks, Cheryl Reeve had more success with the Lynx plugging her point guard hole with Courtney Williams, but you could argue that they came up just short the Lynx because of Williams in the end, as she got exposed in some of the games, and that is why the point guard position is so important. If you have a good point guard like Chelsea Gray or an Ionescu with the Liberty, then you have a chance, especially if you have a stretch 4 or 5. Congratulations to Kelsey Plum, who just got cored. I think you were about to get paid very, very well. So the competition for Miles and Bueckers to be the #1 pick is obviously Kiki Iriafen, but really her defense isn't strong enough. In addition, her shot can be hot and cold. I see Iriafen much like I see Aaliyah Edwards from UConn last year. She will, over time, be a very solid player, and her upside is really dependent on how well she's able to stretch out her shot and if she can develop a three-point shot. I've mentioned it before, but it's still amazing to me. Dallas passed up Aaliyah Edwards last year to take J.C. Sheldon, but really they should have envisioned they were going to have a hole at the forward spot because Natasha Howard has decided not to return and she cannot be cored. In addition, Satu Sabli doesn't want to return, so they really have a hole at that spot. If they would have taken Edwards last year, they would have had the perfect replacement and then combined her with point guard Paige Bueckers and say, hey, you're able to reunite with your UConn teammate. Hence why Greg Bibb is no longer working as the Dallas GM. Again, celebrate if you're a Dallas fan that Greg Bibb won't be making the choices anymore. But either way, let's move on. We've identified why point guard is the position to take in this draft and why Dallas should be looking at that. Now the question is, who do you like? Who do you got? Paige Bueckers or Olivia Miles? I think it is still, well, first of all, let me take a back step here. If you watch my channel, you'll probably say I'm a UConn homer and in the bag for Paige Bueckers. And yes, I do like covering UConn as I like their style of basketball, which is focused on moving the basketball, finding the open shot, and taking the open shot. As well, some people will say I have something against Olivia Miles because I had her dreadfully low on my preseason rankings list, and that was basically based on her not having an outside shot. Like, she was dreadful from the 3 3-point line, but now she seemed to have developed a 3-point shot, so I can see that it's getting much closer in terms of Bueckers and Miles, as Miles now shooting this season over 40% from 3. But prior to this season, she shot 31% in 2022 and 25% in 2023, and then obviously walled down with the ACL injury. She has seemingly fixed her shot, but Paige Bueckers has long-term body of work for being able to shoot. Like, she was 46% from 3 her freshman year, 35% sophomore year, 41% in 2024, and then 39% this year. Some will argue that Paige Bueckers is off the ball more and not a true point guard, which, I mean, you can argue that case if you want, but really Paige Bueckers' usage is higher than Miles. So Miles in 22 had a usage rate of 23%, Bueckers 23% as well. In 23, it was 24% for Miles and 29% for Paige Bueckers. And this year, Miles is at 19% for usage rate versus Paige Bueckers has the ball 28% of the time. The other one I'd look at is turnover percentage. So that is the amount of time you turn over the ball when you have the ball in your possession. So with Miles, that was 22% in 22, 20% in 2023, and in 25, that was 16%, or this year it's down to 16%. Bueckers, her freshman year, it was 13%, then sophomore year, 12%, then went down to 8% her junior year, that being 24, and this year that is still around 8%. So Bueckers generally has the ball more and turns the ball over less. And then finally, the big reason that you want Paige Bueckers is that the WNBA is a pick and roll league and they like picking on small players. Bueckers is bigger than Miles. She is 6 foot where Miles is 5'10". And even if you think these players and teams lie about their height, it is no doubt that Paige Bueckers played the power forward spot last season on defense, and she held up. She had to do that, and she got a number of blocks. Like, she gets block shots. She's lanky and more likely to be able to hold up better than Miles will on the defensive end. So for all of that, I think it is a no-brainer that if you have the number 1 pick and she's willing to come to your franchise, you take Paige Bueckers over Olivia Miles. Now, the shame of it is, for me, even if Bueckers does get drafted number 1, people will say it's political. The franchise did this because she can be a face of the franchise. She has so many Instagram followers and all of that, and it's all political. It's a shame that Chicago doesn't have the number 1 pick, as truly they would be in position to take whatever player they thought was the best player. If they thought Miles was better than Bueckers, then they could take Miles 1 and sell it to their fan base as she goes to Notre Dame. But that is not the case. But either way, either one of these players could be the face of the franchise, as they're both charismatic. Paige Bueckers has taken a lot of heat at UConn in terms of living up to the expectations. In my opinion, she's almost too corporate at the press conferences, a little bit robotic-like, but that's what you do. That's what these teams want, so fine. I think Paige Bueckers, any franchise would be happy to have Paige Bueckers as the face of their franchise, but you will get the ongoing debate that she's overrated. She's getting hyped up because she's white, blonde, and beautiful, and everybody loves Paige Bueckers, where other players that are more deserving of recognition get overlooked because of her, and that's why she's overhyped. For me, if the draft stays as is and the players are drafted, like if Bueckers does go 1 to Dallas, I think the more interesting question will be, does Miles go number 2 to the Sparks, or do they decide to take Kiki Iriafen? And then if Miles is still around for the Sky, it would seem like a no-brainer for the Chicago Sky to take Olivia Miles, hometown girl, bring her in, and she, if her shot is still holds up the whole entire season, okay, we finally got ourselves a really good shooter. My question is, will the Sky do that, as it appears that they do not mind being unpopular, and maybe they think they have their guard position figured out, as I did in a previous video, they have not made a restricted offer to Kennedy Carter, so maybe they think their guards are so good. I doubt that. I just don't think they like Kennedy Carter, but to be determined on the 20th of January if they give her a contract. But that being said, I wonder if the Sky might take Cheyenne Sellers instead of Olivia Miles, as she is the safer pick. She's longer at 6'2". Her draft stock is rising, especially after Maryland's game versus USC, and she held up quite nicely to Juju Watkins. I could see how she would be enticing. I think Olivia Miles, she has a high upside if it works out. If her jumper holds up and she's brilliant with her pull-ups in transition, then there is a pathway for her to be great. I think Hunter Cruz compared her to Chelsea Gray as her ceiling. If that comes off, great, but there's also a potential for it not to work out, especially if her shot does not hold up, because if it does not hold up, then essentially she's just a small guard that's a good ball handler that can't create space. If it were me and I had the number 2 pick for the Sparks or number 3 pick for Chicago, it would be a no-brainer. I would take Miles and hope that her shot holds up, because if it does, then you have a really dynamic player that the fans are going to love. And now it is over to you. Who do you see being the number 1 pick? Do you think it's Paige Bueckers or Olivia Miles, or do you see Kiki Iriafen? All your thoughts and poison. Yes, call me a homer or whatever, or an Olivia Miles hater. Whatever you got, put down your comments. Thanks a lot for watching. Have a great night.